What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful night tonight. Beautiful night, but a little bit warm. 86 degrees, 43% humidity. It feels like you're in Arizona. That's what it feels like right now. But I'm in LA, but still, it's got that, you know, when you open up the oven door and the heat comes after you, that's what it feels like. Today was very, very hot in the daytime. You'd open up your car window and you could feel the heat trying to grab you by the throat. I think it's going to start cooling down tomorrow, 10 degrees maybe, we'll see. Today I was thinking about the radio. I'm a big fan of the radio. Love listening to the radio, music, talk, you name it. Nighttime, turn it on, relax, listen to the, you know, whoever's on. I don't know if he's still around, but there used to be a guy named David Allen Boucher. David Allen Boucher was on 106.7 WMJX. I don't know if he's still there, if the station exists. I have no idea. But David Allen Boucher had a show called Bedtime Magic. And you turn it on at like 11 o'clock at night, and he would talk soft and say, "This is David Allen Boucher, and welcome to Bedtime Magic." And then he'd play something by Lionel Richie. Used to enjoy listening to David Allen Boucher. I have no idea what he looks like because I don't have any pictures of him. But he was one of those DJs that I enjoyed listening to late at night. And then there were talk shows that I would listen to. And one of my favorite ones was a guy named Norm Nathan. Norm Nathan is no longer around, but I would listen to him. One time Norm Nathan kept me company, so I was driving down the East Coast in my motor car. And it was around, I don't know, 11:30 at night. And I turned on the radio, WBZ, and Norm Nathan was on. And because it was nighttime, I could get the signal. And I was down to North Carolina around there, and I could pick him up. So I was listening to him, and I really enjoyed his show because his show had no topics, and he always said, keep it light. No politics. It was just, you know, conversation. What'd you do today? You know, kind of music you listen to, that kind of stuff. Older guy, but I loved listening to his show. I wish we had more people like that. In the old days, before syndication was a reality like now, there was a bunch of DJs or a bunch of talk show hosts in every city that were really good and popular. Now, there's like 10 guys that dominate. No matter where you go, you flip the switch on, they're on, you know, 500-600 stations across the country. And back in the old days, when I was in my prime, every state had its own group of people that ran the radios. Now it's all the same people. So, yeah, and I always enjoyed listening to the radio talk 10 to 2 at night. When I was in 8th grade, I started doing this. I had a little radio by my bed, and back then I got used to this, so it was the only way I could go to sleep. So I would turn on the radio. There was a specific show I would listen to. It would come on 10 and off the air at 2. And I would usually be in bed, you know, by 10. I'd listen for a while, and then by 11 I was out like a light. So I had the 11 to 7 shift in bed. And I would listen to this radio program for about 45 minutes or so, and then I would doze off. But I'd leave the radio on. And you know how sound carries at night. My father would come and knock on the door. He'd say, "Shut that down, I could hear it." So I'd turn it down. Even though it was really low, at nighttime when everything is quiet, you can hear the sound of the voice. But I used to enjoy that show. I love listening to Norm Nathan. And then when I would go like cross country, had a radio on in the car. Although, you know, it's a lonely existence going across by yourself cross country, especially at nighttime. And I would listen to all these obscure radio shows. Another thing I enjoy is radio drama. So for a while here in LA, there was a radio station on the AM dial that did the drama stuff, westerns, cop shows, but it was all on the radio. And I would listen to that. That was like, you know, I would sit, turn the radio on, and just lean back and enjoy the stories. They had the sound effects, all that. I mean, I can go I can go on the internet every night and do the same thing now because all that stuff's available on YouTube. But I used to like it when it was on the radio. You know, the drama. I felt like the Waltons sitting by the radio, you know, 1938, enjoying drama on the radio. I have a story that one time I was involved in with a DJ on the radio. I will mention her name. I don't know if she's still around or if she's retired. I'm thinking she's alive, but you know, she's still on the radio. So there was a female DJ that I used to listen to all the time, you know, enjoyed her stuff, her style. Her name was Karen Blake. Karen Blake. And Karen Blake was in those days, she was in the waterfront area of the city. So one day cruising around, located the building she was in. It looked like a really nice apartment complex, oak wood inside, you know, you could see the windows were without curtains, so you could see inside. It was dark. Couldn't see the radio station, but you could see the staircase going up, oak wood lining the floors with the beam showing. And so I decided I was going to go in there and try and talk to her. Now today, if I did the same thing, you'd probably be arrested. So I went through the front doors, and there was a security guard at the front desk. And then there were these doors you had to go through. And he says to me, "Can I help you?" And I, without hesitating, said, "Yeah, I'm supposed to be on the Karen Blake show. I'm a comedian." And he goes, "Oh, follow me." Takes out his keys, opens up the first door. We go inside, opens up the second door, and then there was a fancy staircase, like the Brady Bunch staircase. Remember that staircase in their house, but bigger and longer. So we go up. We get to the top floor. He knocks on the door where the radio station was. Not she, but her producer opens up the door, and actually she opened up the door. Producer was in the back there, and there was a separate room. He was in that room. She opens up the door, and she says, "Yeah," and he goes, "Oh, I have your guest for tonight." Now she knew I was not the guest, right? But he didn't know that, and he didn't ask her, "Is this the correct guy?" He just left me there. And he left. He went downstairs, and then she started talking. And she's like, "Hi, how are you?" And she was really friendly. She was not scared because I was not threatening. And we spoke. And you know, I got into the studio there, and she was talking and I said hi on the air. Said, "Say something." I said something. And then, you know, she was playing songs, and then, you know, and then I left because I felt like I was intruding to begin with. And you know, you don't know what's going to happen next. I thought maybe, you know, because she told me to step out for a second. I think she had to do a commercial, but I thought maybe she was setting me up to call the cops. So when she said, "Can you stand out there for a second?" I left. I didn't want to take a chance, you know. I was thinking, you know, is she going to 911 and say, "Yeah, I have a guy here. He's pretending to be a guest. I don't know. He's like a little bit off. Can you guys check him out?" So I left, and then she mentioned on the air, he's like, "I don't know where he went." Well, I left. So this is many years ago, and I'll tell you when this happened. Huey Lewis and the News had a song, "Perfect World," and that was a song that was playing when we, you know, interacted. Perfect World. And so it's a lot of years ago. So many years later, like about 10 years ago, I found her on the internet. She was on another radio station, and I emailed her, and I said to her, "Do you remember a situation where somebody came through the door there where you were broadcasting and told you they were a comedian and all that?" And she goes, you know, she responded, she says, "Yeah, kind of." She goes, "Vaguely, I do have a memory of such an event." Well, that was me. So it's funny how if you behave like you belong, they let you in. You know, if you're like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be here. I have an interview with Karen Blake." That's what I told him. I'm a comedian. And he was very friendly. He was, "Oh, come on, this way." He goes, "Let me take you upstairs." And he took me. I could have been a crazy guy. And then he left. Like I said, he didn't even ask her, "Was this guy legit?" You know. Didn't even ask her. So that was like a good memory because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of the radio. And I'll tell you right now, my favorite radio station of all time was a radio station called WBCN. I thought that because that radio was around from the 60s, and I thought, pause, I thought that radio station was going to be around for 100 years. Well, it went out of business. Went out of business. Hold on. And I used to go walk by BCN, and they had a little gift shop, and I would go in there and I would buy t-shirts and things like that. But I loved that radio station, WBCN. There were other stations too I used to listen to, but BCN was my station. So, you know, but I'm a radio guy. I enjoy listening to, you know, you name it. You name it. I listen to everything. I mean, you know, there's nothing that I don't find interesting. I listened, there was this good show on NPR, not for the news or anything like that, you know. I mean, you get the news where you get it from. I get it from all over the place, different sources, cross-check. But NPR used to have these cool little shows about the arts. They would talk about movies, music, things like that, and I would listen to that stuff. There was a poet that one time was featured on NPR, and his name was Pierre DeChico, right? Poet, became a priest and everything. He passed away a few years ago, but I loved his stuff. He had a book called Dead Men of the 50s. I think that's what it was called, and I bought it and I read it, and I got really into his poetry. DeChico. But yeah, there's, you know, a lot of interesting things on the radio. Not all of it is, you know, that good, but a lot of it, you know, is good for me. So what other station did I? Yeah, there were stations I would get up in San Francisco. I could hear them, you know, but I had a decent radio, and it could pick up at nighttime, especially because, what is it? Is it the stratosphere or ionosphere, where the signal bounces off at night and it spreads further out? And I was a huge fan of Wolfman Jack. Wolfman Jack in those days, now it's limited to 50,000 watts. That's the big boy on the block. If you have a radio station 50,000 watts, that's impressive. But before that, I think, you know, you could go a lot higher. So when they put the restriction of 50,000 watts, now it's syndicated. It doesn't matter. Now you can bounce around like a, you know, like, what is that? The you know, when you have a CB and it bounces from one to the other, and it goes further out. Repeater, right? Now you got all these stations that use each other, and they bounce the station signal all over the country. But back then you had to have a powerful antenna. So Wolfman Jack, when they reduced the power in America, he went down to Mexico. I think it was Tijuana, and he got, I think it was a 250,000 watt antenna that would glow at night from the amount of power it was sending out. And you could get him across the country from Mexico. You could be in New York at night and listen to Wolfman Jack. And I will say, radio personalities like back then, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, they don't exist anymore. You know, back then you had all these guys that had the rhythm of talking, and that doesn't exist now. You have people like Mario Lopez on the radio, Brian Seacrest. It's ordinary stuff. They're all right for what they do, but it's not like the old days. Old days, you had Casey Kasem, Wolfman Jack, the Grease Man, and a lot of local guys that nobody even knew about. You know, we had Charles Laquadera, who I believe is alive, and I think he's out in California somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. He might have moved. But Charles Laquadera, he was the DJ. Everybody would listen to him. Charles Laquadera. Wow, there it is. I don't know who owns that helicopter, but that is a very tiny, ridiculous helicopter. I don't know what that is. So, yeah, back then the personalities, I mean, that's why you tuned in. I used to love all that, you know, the little music in the background, the intro, the bumper music, DJs rhyming their stuff. And there was a really good record store in my area. It was called Skippy White's Records. Go in there and you'd find everything. The owner knew everything. You'd hum something to him and he would be like, oh, let me show you where that is. You know, I like going to the independent record stores. There's one out here as you're going towards Santa Monica, and they have vintage records. I was in there a couple of weeks ago with my daughters and I bought a bunch of stuff. I go to Amoeba. Amoeba is one of my favorite, it is my favorite record store out here. A few years ago I used to go once a week. Now I go once every month, maybe, you know. And then before that I used to go to Tower Records, and I would go to the big one and I would do each floor. First floor, then I'd go up all the way to the top, and I'd check out all the new stuff, magazine section, new releases. But yeah, I miss the good old-fashioned radio of the old days. Plus, you know, the radio and everything else is not what it used to be. Like I said, the personalities don't exist anymore. I don't even know if Rick Dees is on the air anymore. I used to listen to him once in a while. Rick Dees, Shadow Stevens, another one. I actually ran into Shadow Stevens about 13, 14 years ago. I was in Starbucks up in Beverly Hills there, and I look over to my right and I see him, and I kind of whispered to my wife, I go, that's Shadow Stevens. But he heard me and he gave me one of these like that, and I said to myself, he heard me. But Shadow Stevens was there. A couple of times I ran into some other DJs that, you know, if I mentioned their names you wouldn't know them because they were local. Jerry Williams was on talk radio. Michael Jackson, not the singer, but the DJ, the talk show host out here in LA, he was legendary. Jerry Williams was on WRKO 68 or 680 was big time popular. So when I was a kid, WRKO AM station played AM rock. That's where you got the music in the old days, AM. And then I don't know what happened, what the law was, how things switched, but at some point FM became the music and AM became more the news and the talk. But when I was a kid, WRKO 68 AM was all music, all the hits, all the good stuff. You turn on the radio and you'd hear it. But I will say that AM doesn't have as good of a sound as FM. FM sounds a lot better. So maybe that's why they put the FM, all the good songs and all the radio stations became rock and R&B and all of that, pop. They all went to FM. You know, there's a radio station here in LA that is on the AM dial and the FM dial. They play the same stuff. It's simulcasted, simultaneously broadcasted. And so what I do is I flip between the AM and the FM of the same station, and the quality is night and day. FM sounds really nice. AM sounds like you're listening through a CB. So that's it for now. I have something in the oven cooking, so I have to keep an eye on it. That's why I'm looking at the time here. I don't want to, I mean, I still have a few minutes, but I don't want to burn it. Nothing beats water when the water tastes right. Yeah, that's right. I miss radio. And I will say once again, Norm Nathan. Look him up. Norm Nathan. I can't say enough. I used to, you know, it's like a decompression show. unwinding, where you listen to him, was all, you know, light topics. You couldn't call him up and talk about, I don't know, a war or something like that. He didn't want to talk about that. Little flies, you know. He would talk about, like, what'd you have for lunch, or, you know, what's your favorite car, or what's your favorite band, what's your favorite song. I never called him up. I called others up, though. I've been on the radio talk for a few times. But if you asked me my favorite song, I would say, well, one of my favorite songs is Come On Eileen by Dexy's Midnight Runners. I love that tune, especially the remastered version that came out a couple of years ago. And that Kevin Rowland, I want to say, where do you get your clothes from? Look at that video, the remastered version of Come On Eileen, which is similar to Only the Good Die Young. It's a similar message by Billy Joel. But anyway, fancy clothes, big bell-bottom pants, pink suits. But I've always been a fan of his. I like the style of singing that he does, and just in general, I like that, you know, that old British neighborhood where they shot the video. I gotta look it up. I gotta find out where that was. I want to visit that place. You know, Britain has all these cool little places, and I think Ireland too, similar. So that's it for now. Ciao.